Hey everybody, welcome back. We are taking on our Hydra-Fiend one more time. This is a custom kit bash that I put together using a 3D printed Hydra model, as well as a Maulerfiend from Games Workshop. In the first round of painting, we handled putting down greens and purples on both the base and the miniature itself, mostly on the panels here. But let's put away the base for now. And we'll also take a look here at the accessories. These are magnetized. We're not going to worry about the greens and purples today, though. We're going to focus on the non-metallic gold. That is a big part of the Chaos Star and the ridge down the back. This is our current status with our model, just so you know where it stands, what it's looking like. Most of this work has been done with an airbrush for the green, and the purple has just been based in with a normal brush. Same thing with the heads. We've done a little bit of washing to get some detail out, but not too much detail work yet. Let's get out our palette for the non-metallic metal. We're going to use Vallejo Model Color Black, Citadel Dryad Bark, Vallejo Model Color US Field Drab, P3 Moldy Ochr, and Schmenke White paint. This gold scheme is something I developed on the recent video where I created the River Runner marine scheme, and we're going to be reusing that on this for slightly less yellow, less bold, but more intense visually non-metallic gold. So let's get started. I'm going to cover up the Vallejo Model Color Hull Red that I originally based in here with some of that Citadel Dryad Bark. Now I'm using the Dryad Bark because I want the base tone to be brown, but we're going to add some black into some of the areas for the shadow. That's going to be more of a glaze or a slight feather. Some of the next steps I'll be taking is putting some of the US Field Drab and a little bit of the Moldy Ochr, mixes thereof, even with the Dryad Bark, and start sketching in where I think some of the light should be falling. Now notice there's going to be slightly radial pattern on the circle part. And we're gonna use some of the arrows in kind of a more stylistic way of interpreting the light. But overall, the end goal is it should look good to you. That's kind of the end result kind of gauge. It should just look good. Obviously, realism is up to you. So again, this is not completely realistic, but I am taking cues from where the light should be falling on the model to help me make this look good. The Moldy Ochr is pretty bold, especially when mixed and blended with a little bit of that Field Drab. And once we've got that mixed in a little bit, we'll actually desaturate it a little bit by mixing in a little bit of our Schmenke White, and then we'll use that in a few spots, especially along the edges, to get some specular highlights and some edge highlights that look really good and really tight. So this video is not going to be a whole lot of talking and a whole lot of instruction for me, but it's going to be a bit more of the demonstration over what I'm doing. You'll notice that I'm going over a number of areas repeatedly, and I'm also kind of sketching in some intermediate kind of light areas, kind of, for example, right here on these arrows, kind of giving them some horizontal light bands. And I'll be working these up with the Moldy Ochr and the white, and adding a little bit of a sketchy texture to it. In fact, I add a sketchy texture to most of this. But like I said, this is not quite an instructional video, but just more of an update on how I am doing with this project and trying to keep painting during kind of a difficult time in my life. Picking up these really fun and interesting whips is a great way to keep myself motivated, and the Hydra-Fiend is something I've really wanted to get back to work on at some point, including a couple of other Liquefactor themed models and projects. So you can see some of those horizontal light bands I'm starting to work in kind of as I go around this, and I'm going to keep working this. It's going to take me a little while. Overall, this video encompasses about 6 hours of paint time, and there's a little bit, maybe 30 minutes of paint time also spent on the base, adding some non-metallic golds there on the small metal safe looking structure, as well as some of the pipes and tubing that are coming out of the base. So I will finish that up later. Now this video does encompass most of what I need to do for the non-metallic gold, but there's a little bit that will be left over at the end of the video, and I'll show you what I mean. Adding in more of that titanium white adds very bold light reflections on the non-metallic gold and kind of finalizes out what we really want. Even the whitest spots here are really a little bit mixed with just a bit of that P3 Moldy Ochr. But you can see how it's kind of coming in on one half of the star, and we're going to continue just working the star all around in the same fashion. At one point I thought it might be fun to do the entirety of all of the trim on this model in non-metallic, but it really wouldn't fit the entire theme of my Liquefactor's color scheme, at least not right now, and it'd probably just take a little bit too much time for what kind of effect I'd get out of it. I really want to get this done a little faster, even though I'm going to be taking some serious time with this and a number of the purple effects here. Now you can see, though, I've decided to take on the spines and all the little claws and fangs and stuff that are kind of sticking out of the armor, especially along the trim. The trim will be a true metallic steel. It'll be just a little bit muted using some wash technique. There's a few little spots here I want to make sure that I get based in for non-metallic gold, including these little kind of hubcaps that are made out of its feet and placed over the areas where the legs would be on the 3D printed model, kind of as little exhaust ports. I think this would be a nice little touch of non-metallic gold right here, as well as these little spikes, etc. Most of what I'm doing here is working in planes and small sections. I'm kind of breaking up even the star itself into multiple areas that I can work on. So each little rivet around the circle is kind of an area, each little arrow on the star is an area, and the arrows kind of repeat. Each arrow repeats about twice, and each rivet kind of repeats all around 8 times. On top of that, the spines down the back comprise of multiple planes as well. The top plane that you can see that I've already worked, as well as the side planes. And on these kind of round areas, these are going to be treated like cylinders, so there'll be some vertical shines here. And that's one round plane all the way around. There's just a little bit of a recess on the sides of these, so I want to make sure that I highlight those out. Now, I'm only getting one side of these in this video. I'll need to go back and finish up this other side here. And I'm actually going to have to finalize the side of this, since I kind of ran out of time this week, but did get quite a bit of this non-metallic work done, so I'm pretty happy with the progress. I think getting these spines and contrasting it with the muted true metallic is really going to give us a great effect. I'm also looking forward to using some purples to get kind of a purple metallic effect on the exhaust stacks as well. I think that'll be really fun and really interesting texture-wise. but it is going to take a while and more time than this video allows to get all of this non-metallic done, but in the time allotted, we made quite a bit of progress, and I'm pretty happy with the texture overall. You can see how the star is almost there, and we're starting to get some just relative color and shade along these back spines already pretty quickly. Now we're just kind of blending various blends. Don't be afraid to darken things back down or add a little black back in to get some really deep shadow. That is always acceptable. Moving up or down value-wise is always an option. You can see I've gotten really intense. I've leaned in and catch a little bit of my cap here during this painting session, and I'm really trying to get this stuff knocked out. The blending is something that I've been working on for quite a while, and obviously blending is just something you should practice as an artist, just in general, no matter what you're doing. But it's something that plays an incredible role here in non-metallic. And it's also something that plays a huge role in airbrushing, and really the skill crosses over between the two. Practicing this blending here, doing my non-metallic, and practicing the textures as well is going to translate into increased skill and capability in my airbrush, and vice versa. So this is always something that I like to remind people when they ask me about, you know, how they should go about learning the airbrush or when they should learn the airbrush. It's kind of an ambiguous answer, but the big thing is the amount of skill that you can transfer between the two is really the big deciding factor. If you can benefit from one in the other, then it's a great way to kind of multiply your learning experience and get some really interesting results in the end. The airbrush makes for really nice, super smooth blends and textures, as well as some really fun ways to create light sources, etc. And having the skills to do things by hand and integrate those airbrush textures into the rest of your paint job and add detail and, you know, a little something a little bit more interesting than just smooth textures is really important. Not to preach too much, but I do like to talk about it. I think it is important for anybody who's deciding to work on learning the airbrush or just painting in general. You can see here the star is basically done at this point. We've got a nice, a little bit more muted, a little bit more brown toned Chaos Star in gold than what I've been doing in the recent past, but I really enjoy this tone. I think I'll continue using this in the future. I'm going to keep working these. You can see I'm getting the tips here, and I'm getting some good general side panel fades. And then I'm actually going to go back in here before I'm done and start adding in the first of many kind of intermediate kind of light bands across the sides of one of these fins. But I'm going to need that across the side of all of the fins on both sides. So this is really where I'm going to end it. I'm pretty happy with the progress that we've made. Like I said, I kind of ran out of paint time. I managed to get in a few hours. It's been a very rough time for me just in general, but I'm glad to be able to get some paint in and share it, especially on YouTube. This is a great creative exercise, and I'm pretty happy with my results here. What I've learned in my previous videos, I've created this new palette for what I want to use for my non-metallic gold, and I'm pretty damn happy with it. I'm going to be continuing this on in one of my next videos, as well as adding in some true metallic trim, adding in some hazard stripes on the leg panels, and adding in some metallic work along these exhaust ports. So until next time, thank you for joining me. Keep on painting, keep on learning, and have a great and wonderful week.